Well, this is a story about a guy who was born in New Orleans, and his mum and dad were murdered by the Ku Klux Klan when he was 3 years old, and so he spent his life in the Waifs and Strays home in New Orleans, and he was brought up by the charity of the Waifs and Strays home. Every morning there was a guy blew a bugle to waken the kids up, and that guy was called Louis Armstrong, who became one of the biggest jazz trumpeters in the whole world. But our man was called Jack Dupree, and Jack Dupree, after being brought up on the streets of New Orleans, he always said that the pimps and the prostitutes in the town were his mother and father. He got into a career playing piano, but then came World War II and they sent him to Japan to fight, and he was captured by the Japanese. He spent 2 years in a prisoner of war camp in Japan before going back to America, where he learned to become a boxer. And as a boxer he sparred with Joe Louis, one of the champion boxers of the whole wide world. He was called the Brown Bomber, and champion Jack Dupree took on the name champion because of his boxing. But then he moved to New York, became a blues singer, and eventually came to London to perform, where he met a girl from Halifax called Shirley Harrison. And Shirley and Jack set up home up there in Ovenden. The first time I saw him was down here in George Square, where he pulled a station wagon, an American station wagon, into George Square, and on the side of it, it had emblazoned Champion Jack Dupree, blues singer, New Orleans. And he got out of the station wagon and walked into the Plummet Line Hotel. I'd never seen a black guy in Halifax before. This was about 1964. And not only was he a black guy, but he was immaculately dressed. He had a gold tooth, he had earrings. Nobody wore earrings in those days. And he had a striped blazer on. He looked $1 million. But champion Jack Dupree played all around these parts, and one of the biggest venues he played in was the Plummet Line Hotel. Now, the Plummet Line Hotel was the centre of the folk and roots movement, but it did have a great piano in there, and so champion Jack would come and perform in this venue, and he wowed all the people. He also played at the Dusty Miller down in Hebden Bridge, Mytholmroyd area, and all around. What happened to champion Jack though was that when he left Halifax, he moved to Scandinavia, and sadly he died there, and his ashes were scattered in the North Sea, so his family had nowhere to go. And what we did when I wrote this book, Small Town Saturday Night, we put on a concert down at the Viaduct Theatre in Deanclough called Back to Jack, and we raised enough money to put a plaque on the wall in memory of champion Jack Dupree. Now the family have got somewhere to go to remember the father. The family still live in the area, but champion Jack Dupree became a native of Halifax all the way from New Orleans, the first black guy I ever saw in Halifax.